Hi everyone, I'd like to welcome you to the first in a series of videos on plant-based cooking sponsored by the South Bay SDA Church in Chattanooga. In this video we're going to talk about oatmeal. How do you cook oatmeal? Most people put it in a pot, heat it up, put it in a bowl, and then top it with something, whether it's raisins or nuts or walnuts or sugar or salt, maybe not salt, that's kind of weird, or milk. But there's so much more you can do with oatmeal. You're going to see 5 recipes that can really transform what you can do with oatmeal for breakfast. Now, Rachel is going to share about those in a few minutes. Before she does, Hildelisa is going to talk to us about how we can get immunity through nutrition.
I am excited to be spending this time with you. Let me ask you, do you even remember what life was like 6 weeks ago? I remember it was the night before everything broke loose. And I was at Walmart. I decided to go to Walmart because I needed a few items. And as I'm there, I'm very surprised at the amount of people who are there. And not only that, but everybody's cart looks like this. I remember one particular couple just standing there in front of the cookie aisle or with the crackers and all of the cookies, and they were just like piling things in their cart. I'm like, what's going on? Well, I decided to get out, go pay for my few items, and then I went back home. Well, that night, I started to realize what we were facing. So I'm thinking, well, I'm going to need to go back to the store and I'm going to need to load up on all those disease fighting foods and things that are going to keep my family's immune system healthy. That's my dietitian and mother brain thinking. So I head back to the store the next day. And as I'm driving, I'm thinking, oh no, everybody else has been thinking the same way. By the time I get to the store, there's not going to be anything left. Well, so I walk into the store, and guess what? I'll tell you at the end of my talk. So I'm thinking, well, what kind of foods am I going to feed my family to keep our immune system healthy? And that's what we're going to be talking about in the next few minutes, how to optimize your immunity with nutrition. So we know that lifestyle habits, there's a few components that are going to improve our immune system. We know about social distancing and washing hands and proper sleep and exercise, but we know that nutrition is a big one. So here is what kinds of food we need to eat in a pandemic, but not necessarily just in a pandemic, but all the time. So those foods that are going to improve and optimize our immune system are plant foods. Why? Because they're full of phytochemicals and fiber. So phytochemicals are chemicals in plant. And guess what? Animal products, animal foods don't have any phytochemicals. Those are the disease-fighting chemicals that God has put into food to keep us healthy. Now, these are things like antioxidants and all of the cancer-fighting and chronic disease-fighting chemicals that I'm sure you have heard about. So we're going to go pretty fast as to practical things, what foods you can eat to keep your immune system healthy. So put on your seatbelts because we're going to go fast. So the fruits, you want to load up on berries. Blueberries especially, and actually the richer the color, the more disease-fighting potential they have. So you have all your berries, and also prunes. Imagine that. Prunes are really, really high in antioxidants, and it'll help to keep you regular, and it'll improve your immune system, but you might need more toilet paper, so you're gonna have to make that call. Okay. Then when we think about the vegetables, here are the stars of all vegetables, is the cruciferous vegetables. So you have a list right there of all the vegetables that are included here. They're going to be full of vitamin C, vitamin K, antioxidants, and fiber. And now, out of all of them, if you had to choose one, I'm going to tell you the one to choose, and that would be the king of them all is kale. You can think of K for kale and king of vegetables. So bring out those kale chips and kale smoothies and all that, because that's going to be, it's going to give you the most for your money, so to speak. Now, also in the vegetable family, you have your onions and your garlic. Now, you know that garlic, there's your answer for social distancing. So garlic is full of antioxidants, and they have done studies that show that those who are taking enough garlic, they have like a 60% less risk of getting a cold. And if they do get a cold, the duration is much less than if they were not eating the garlic. So you want to eat lots of garlic. And here's a little tip. The medicinal value in garlic is in a chemical it's actually destroyed by cooking and heating. But if you do this little trick, you will prevent that loss. And that is that you will chop it or crush it or somehow expose it to air for about 10 minutes before cooking with it. If you're gonna roast it in the oven, make sure you cut off the tops to expose it, let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then you can cook it. And you'll get the most benefit from the garlic like that. Okay, then we have your vitamin C's, and you know all these, the oranges, the kiwis, bananas, the red peppers. Now, if you are diabetic, you might want to be a little extra careful with the tropical fruits because they are higher in the glycemic index is going to be higher. But your northern fruits like your apples and your berries, those are going to be better. That's if you're diabetic. Okay, then we have the beta carotene. Now, beta carotene is converted to vitamin A, which is really important for your immune system. Now, one thing is that you don't want to do a supplement, because when you get the beta carotene from the foods, your body will convert exactly what it needs at just the right amount. But if you get a supplement, you might get toxic levels of this. So always, the food is the best, not the supplements. Another thing is that antioxidants, they have discovered about 5,000 antioxidants. But guess what? There's tons of antioxidants that have not been discovered yet. So if you're getting your antioxidants from a pill, you're missing out on all those extra antioxidants that are not even discovered yet. Also, all of these nutrients, they don't act independently. There's a synergistic effect that all of these nutrients working together is what gives us the protection for our immune system. And guess what? Beta carotene is also found in the green vegetables. It's just that the chlorophyll covers the orange color. So we want also vitamin E is a potential powerful antioxidant. Those are going to be in your sunflower seeds, your almonds, your peanut butter, your hazelnuts, also vegetable oils. But you want to keep the oils to a minimum because oils and a high-fat diet, especially the omega-6 fatty acids, are immune suppressants. So you want to get these things from the real food, like your seeds and your avocados. Omega-3. We have avocados, and again, the seeds, the chia seeds, the flaxseed, the spinach, the avocados, which I think I already mentioned. Now we have zinc. Zinc is a mineral that is going to boost your white blood cells. They're going to defend against invaders. And the zinc is going to be found in the whole grains, the beans, the seeds, and the nuts. And I want you to notice in the middle of the screen, you see the oats. Oats are really, it's a power food that you want to have in your diet. In addition to all of the soluble fibers that are going to clean your body from cholesterol, you're going to get the zinc and the other phytochemicals that are going to protect your immune system. And then, of course, there's vitamin D, which you can get. The best way to get your vitamin D is from the sun. Just don't get a sunburn. But if you spend some time out in the sun, a few times a week, you're going to get this vitamin. And to finish, I just want to let you know that the summary of it all is that if you just eat the rainbow, you're going to get all of the disease-fighting chemicals that are in plant foods. And also, if you focus your diet, your plant-based diet, on the fruits, the vegetables, and the whole grains, the beans, and the seeds, that's what's going to keep your immune system at optimal levels. So I walk into the store, and guess what? Sure enough, the shelves were empty, but those were the meat shelves. Luckily, there was plenty of fruits and vegetables left. Now, I guess everybody just loaded up on things that really are not going to help them. And I wasn't really aware of all the disease-fighting powers of toilet paper. Go figure.
Hi, my name is Rachel Detweiler, and today I'm going to show you 5 different ways to make oats. We have overnight oats, baked apple oatmeal, banana bread bars, oat crackers, and maple date granola. Please try these recipes and let me know if you do. I'm so excited for you to enjoy them. Thank you. And so we start off with our rolled oats. And again, this is a very simple recipe. It's just oats. This is almond-based yogurt. And then we have, you could use soy or coconut milk yogurt. And I used unsweetened and preferred to sweeten myself. I used honey. You could use maple syrup, or you could totally leave it out if you wanted to. It tastes good either way, depending on the type of yogurt that you use. We had almond milk in our home, so we use almond milk versus soy, but you could use soy or whatever plant-based milk you like the best. You just stir this up. It's very simple, and make sure everything is nice and moist and covered, and then you cover it and put it in the refrigerator overnight. And then we like to serve ours with chopped fresh fruit and often granola on top. You could top it with nut butter as well. All right, our next recipe is a baked apple oatmeal. I tend to do a lot of baked things that I can do ahead. I have 4 children. I like to do my devotions in the morning. I like to exercise, and I try to get things done ahead of time so I can get my stuff done in the morning. And this is something that you can make up and just pop it in the oven when you're getting ready, and it doesn't take any time at all to make. I'm going to go ahead and click the video here so you can see how we made it. One more time here. All right, and again, I started with rolled oats. The longest part of this recipe is literally peeling, coring, and cutting the apple up, and it's just 1 apple. So it just doesn't take very long. There's cinnamon and salt there. You could leave out the cinnamon if cinnamon bothers you, or you could use a combination of cardamom and coriander. If you're interested in that, I can help you figure that out. Again, you could, instead of using apples, you could use peaches, you could use pears, you could use bananas even if you'd like. Again, the milk and oat ratio is approximately the same. You could also, I used maple syrup in this recipe, but you could also leave that out. I have used apple juice concentrate before. applesauce as well. And this one has raisins in it. You could leave those out and put dates in, or cranberries, or whatever you prefer, or nothing at all. It's very, like I said, very, very versatile. I used a 5x7 pan here to bake this in, again, because it's for 2 people. And so you can just put it in there. If you had an 8x8, it would just make it a little bit thinner. So just get it all in there. And a lot of times I'll just leave this in the refrigerator overnight, and then I'll pull it out and put it in the oven in the morning. So you don't have to do that. You can put it right in. It's, I think, 350 for about 30 minutes. Again, this next recipe I have made about, and I'm literally not exaggerating, I have tried about 200 granola recipes. Just trying different stuff, playing with the different nuts and seeds and sweeteners and stuff. And this is just one of those 200 recipes that I have enjoyed. This one's a little sweeter, so you might wait till the pandemic is over before you make it. Or you can cut the sweetener down a little bit, which I'll show you what I mean here in a second. This has a few more ingredients. It kind of looks intimidating at first, but it's really not that bad. So we're going to use the rolled oats again, and it's a couple of cups. There's sunflower seeds, and then there's buckwheat. This is raw buckwheat that has, and it has a nice, interesting crunch that comes when you use it. It's actually a seed, not a grain. And you can put it in, I guess it is a grain. You can put it in a lot of different things, and it works as a binder as well. The original recipe calls for the salt and cinnamon and flaxseed to be put into the dry mixture. I did not do that. I find that it's easier to put it with the wet ingredients so you can disperse it a little bit better. So I just added all of the rest of the ingredients to the blender, as you will see. And again, you do not have to use the cinnamon if it is something that bothers your system. You can use a cardamom, or you could leave it out if you need to. This is golden flaxseed that I have actually already ground, and I made a mess with it, as you see. And you could also put whole flax seeds in. If you're gonna blend it in the blender, it will break it down just fine. This also has coconut oil. You could use a handful of nuts instead, but as you probably saw, this is nut free. So if you're trying to keep it nut free, you wouldn't want to do that, but you could add walnuts in place of the coconut oil if you wanted. And again, I just blended it up really quickly, which it's not looking like I did it very quickly, but and then that's what came out. The Vitamix really requires a little bit more, but if you have a smaller blender, this came out a little bit chunkier than I probably would have liked it, but first it works for what we were doing here. And it actually came out really nice as the granola. So when I do granola, I have a tendency to stir it a lot, as you'll see, because you want to really make sure everything is coated, because there's nothing worse than dry oatmeal that doesn't have anything on it when you're done with your granola. And it's like the bottom last little bit, and you're like, oh, I don't want to eat that. So we don't want to waste that. And so we always make sure we stir it really well. I'm using a pan that has a silicone mat on it. If you don't have a silicone mat, I highly, highly recommend them. They keep your pans from getting messed up, and they make things bake very crisp. You can bake potatoes on this, sliced up and like French fries, and not use any oil, and they'll still brown and be beautiful. They make granola so that it clusters up without you having to stir it or anything, and they only cost like $10 for 2 of them. And there's the finished product of our granola. And again, it goes great on that overnight oats. The next recipe I'm making for you here is oat crackers. It seems kind of silly maybe to make your own crackers, but again, oats are a powerhouse food, and you can make gluten-free crackers that are just amazing with just oats. I'm gonna go ahead and start the video for this. This one's, I think, a tad longer. Here's our oat crackers. The first thing I do is I take the oats, the measurement for the oats, and I throw them in a blender, and that's all it takes to make oat flour. You just throw it in the blender and just run it for a few seconds and it's ready to go. This doesn't have very many ingredients, so you have your salt and your baking powder. And then I also added margarine. You could use oil. I used Earth Balance margarine for the taste of it. You could, like I said, use any oil that you have. And you could use applesauce instead if you wanted as well. They won't crisp quite the same, but you could get it. It would work all right. Use a tiny bit of honey in this recipe. Again, you could use maple syrup, or but it needs the moisture, so you want to make sure you use a liquid sweetener. And the key to this recipe is using hot water. When you put the water in, if you use colder water, it makes the crackers crack when you're rolling them out. You want to make sure that it's hot, and it's kind of like making tortillas. And so it absorbs really quickly. The oats will absorb the water really quickly. And occasionally, I made a couple of batches of these at a time, and they can dry out really fast. So you can add more water if you need to, if you find that the dough is really dry. I rolled this out on parchment paper, and you must score them and cut them before you put them in the oven. I painstakingly made these mostly perfectly square. You wouldn't have to if you didn't care that much and it's just you, but you can cut them in circles too. I've done that as well, or even use a pizza cutter would work as well. When you roll these, you want to make sure that they're about 1/8 of an inch thick. If they're too much thicker, they take a little bit longer to bake, and they don't quite come out quite as crispy. So the thinner they are, the crispier they'll be. I found myself putting the thicker ones back in because I never roll evenly, as probably most of you are probably better at that than I am. But when I'll put them back in the oven for a few minutes, and it'll help, because you want to make sure that they're kind of golden brown and crispy before you pull them out. And they hold up really well. They don't crumble, which is amazing for gluten-free crackers, because even the ones at the store that aren't as hard as rocks crumble. So you either get one of those two choices with gluten-free crackers. And again, I just painstakingly rolled all of them out. You seriously wouldn't have to do it quite like that. And there's the finished results, about the color of my table there. So crispy and golden brown there. This is a new favorite of the Detweiler family. These are banana bread bars. They're very similar to like banana bread, but healthier. They require no oil, and I'm gonna let that video go here. Again, I blended up the oats and made a flour out of part of it. And again, this looks like a lot of ingredients, but it's really not too many once you look at it here. We add the baking powder and salt and the cinnamon. Again, you don't have to use cinnamon. I guess I just like cinnamon in my breakfast recipes. And then we also add whole rolled oats to this recipe, which is going to add a texture to it, a different texture to it. And then once all the dry ingredients are stirred up, and we will talk about the liquid ingredients. A banana, I am really lazy, and I don't usually mash bananas by hand. It does add a certain texture to your banana bread and the banana bars, but I am so lazy, I usually just throw all the liquid ingredients in the blender. So you could totally do that with this recipe. Just throw your bananas and your milk and honey in, and it goes super fast. You can just pour it in. It makes it an even faster time. So in this recipe, I'm just adding the milk and the honey. And again, you don't even really necessarily need the honey. You could probably leave it out if you like your breakfast recipes a little less sweet. The banana that I had was very sweet in there, and it wouldn't need it. You could also add the coconut and the walnuts at this time if you want to, for the texture in the bars. However, I decided to use them to decorate. So again, I use a 5x7 pan. You could use an 8x8. This makes a little bit thicker bar. If you want them a little thinner, they take a little less time to bake. But again, a very easy recipe to make and throw in the oven and go about your day getting ready before breakfast. And so again, make sure you smooth it down really well and make sure everything is nice and moist before you move on. And then I liked the look, and actually it gave a nice toasted flavor to the walnuts and the coconut to add them on the top. And these bake for about 25 minutes at 350. So not a terribly long time. And again, they're great at room temperature. They're great from the refrigerator. We all really, really liked them.
Well, thank you, Hildelisa and Rachel, for sharing about the power of nutrition, and especially oatmeal, and then sharing these fantastic recipes that can transform oatmeal. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up to indicate that you liked it. I want to also let you know that we have several health events throughout the year that we sponsor at the South Bay SDA Church. So go to southbaysda.org/health to see everything that we have scheduled for the rest of the year. Thanks.